You're listening to the Toolstation Western League podcast with Ian Knockholds and Tom Hiscott.
Welcome, listeners, to episode 11 of the Toolstation Western League podcast with me, Ian Knockholds, and I'm delighted to be joined on the line by Tom Hiscott, the author of the Bulletin. Hello, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, doing well, thanks. Yourself?
Not bad, not bad. I didn't watch
Good.
any football this weekend, I have to say. I was taken to Cribbs Causeway by my wife and my children.
On Saturday afternoon?
Where I parted with a large amount of money in Build-A-Bear Workshop.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah. So these are the interesting times in which we live, aren't they? The plethora of different recreational activities that are available to us now, you know, in what I'm going to call the 24-hour on-demand culture.
Oh.
And we hear a lot on the podcast from managers who talk about challenges with player availability. Now, of course, we always like the slightly more colourful ideas that I think this season already we've had a stag do in Las Vegas. Now, frankly, if you're not going to be playing football on a Saturday afternoon, then a stag do in Las Vegas, I think, is a pretty good excuse. But
sounds like a good idea to me, yeah.
Because you'd foolishly committed to go on some sort of outlandishly expensive shopping exercise in a huge out-of-town shopping mall doesn't really seem like doesn't have the same gravitas, does it really? But anyway, that was how I spent my Saturday afternoon. That's my thought for the day. On this week's podcast, we hear from Andy Gurney, the Roman Glass St George manager, and Chris Wise, the manager of Wincanton Town. And of course, we will be looking predominantly at the fixtures on Saturday, the 19th of October. But we can't look at the weekend that's just gone without paying due homage to the matches that happened in the week. In particular, we had two FA Vase ties. These were games, I think, that couldn't go ahead the previous weekend. So two more sides in action in the week. And Bitton, well, they were at home to Tadley Kaliva, if that's indeed how you pronounce it. And they were through in emphatic form, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely dominated this one. 3 goals in either half for Bitton. A 6-1 victory. A pretty good crowd for a Tuesday evening. And, so 6 different goal scorers as well. So, quite a night for Bitton. Scott Bryce, Asa Corrick, Matt Groves, Harrison Kite, Karim Rendell and Matt Tanner all getting on the score sheet. So, Bitton through to the second round. Where
they will play again at home to Fairford Town. So Bitton going very well in the Vase and I'm sure hoping for a good run in that competition. Wednesday the 16th of October and Plymouth Parkway, they made the trip into Hampshire to take on Romsey Town. No mean feat in the midweek from Plymouth, I'm sure, but I'm sure that the away fans went home happy.
Yeah, pretty long trip for a Wednesday evening, but a productive one. A 3-1 win, as you say, away at Romsey. And Adam Carter, obviously, amongst the goals in the league so far this season, and he scored twice for them in the Vase. So a 3-1 win, and they also, as you say, joined Bitton in the second round.
Yes, where they obviously, having enjoyed their trip to Hampshire so much, they decided to go back there again. They'll take on Brockenhurst. They travel to Brockenhurst in the next round of that competition. I'm sure for all the Parkway fans, they dearly hope that they're not going to have to make that trip midweek again. Anyway, we did have 2 fixtures on Wednesday in the Premier Division. We don't normally dwell too much on these on the podcast, but when I tell you that in those 2 games, 12 goals were scored, I think it is worth pointing out Bradford Town beating Brislington 6-1 on Wednesday in front of a very healthy crowd of 113. And Exmouth Town, they took on Street and really put the Somerset side to the sword. 5-0, Exmouth won that game and 161 saw that. But we had a bit of Friday night football. We do like a bit of Friday night football, Tom, and perhaps not the healthiest crowd, but certainly a healthy scoreline, particularly for the home side.
Yeah, I think Wales like a bit of Friday night football. It was a good win for them, 4-1 over Oldland. Oldland have been one of they were the side that, they've been up around the top. They've played quite a few games, but they've been really tough to break down. I think they had one of the better, top sort of 2 or 3 defence coming into this game. But Wales a 4-1 win for them. So now back-to-back 4-1 victories over Oldland. Already completed the league double over them this season. So. Good start for Wales. Kieran Davis putting them ahead inside 3 minutes Oldland hit back with Scott Robson managing to just squeeze his penalty home. But then it was, all Wales. They pushed on, gained the 4-1 win. Dale Hunt restoring their advantage before Harry Foster, their leading scorer this season, made it 3-1. And it was then Tom Hill. He scored after half-time to make it 4-1.
Moving on to Saturday the 19th of October, and the Premier Division kicks us off with an absolute thriller. Two top-of-the-table sides going at each other in front of the biggest crowd of the weekend. 256 people saw Bridgewater take on Bitton.
They did, and what a game. Bridgewater made an absolutely brilliant start to the game. Harry Horton smashing their head in the 6th minute, and then Steve Murray doubling their tally 10 minutes later, putting them 2 goals ahead, and looking pretty good for 3 points, of course. But Bitton had other ideas, halving the deficit thanks to a goal from Asa Corrick, obviously scored in the Vars during the week, as we just mentioned, and then Karen Brendel, another man who'd also among the goals recently, managed to grab an equaliser 5 minutes before half time. So it was 2-2 at the break, and it was then Bitton who managed to push on, completing a pretty memorable comeback, I would have thought. Matt Groves, 12 minutes from time, firing home, and Bitton are 3-2 victors away at Bridgewater.
Now our next time is a classic Western League Premier Division tie. Cribs were at home to Bradford Town, and we had Bradford, of course, on the podcast last week. They're going like an absolute steam train, up in second, doing really, really well this season. Cribs, by their usual standards, and a mid-table season so far. So on form, at least, there was only ever going to be one winner, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. But Cribs had other ideas and managed to gain a point, take a point from Bradford. I think the Bobcats had a 5-game winning run coming into this one. But they did fall behind. George Kello putting Cribs ahead pretty early on. I think he got a hat-trick recently, so he's banging form. But then Bradford managed to move ahead. A goal from Tyson Pollard via a free kick, managing to get them on level terms before Gary Higdon, their top scorer so far this season, extended his pretty healthy record in front of goal over recent times to make it 2-1. And that was how it stayed for much of the contest, going into the final couple of moments. But Jacob Hodgson managed to strike in injury time and grab a share of the spoils. So a well-earned point for Cribs, and it finished 2-2 between them and Bradford.
Well, if there was only going to be one winner between our last two sides, then surely we could say exactly the same thing about our next fixture. Newly promoted Keynsham Town, they've had a couple of good results without question this season, but they are adjusting to life at the higher level. They come up against Exmouth Town. Now, Exmouth, of course, have already featured in the podcast this week. They put Street to the sword 5-0 on Wednesday, but the fast turnaround doesn't seem to have done them many favours. 163 saw this at Keynsham, and a very impressive result for the North East Somerset side.
Amazing. I think I picked this as my game to watch last week. I think I noted that Keynsham were scoring a fair few, but their defence had very much let them down recently. So to get a 1-0 win at home to Exmouth on Saturday afternoon, big crowd, as you say, was massive result for the club. It was Ben Harris scoring the vital goal during the first half, giving them the 1-0 win. But well deserved. I think Keynsham been a bit hard done by recently, scoring a fair few, but as I say, conceding. Looking back over the sort of last 5 games, they conceded 3, 5, 3, 3, and then 4. So to pitch a shutout against Exmouth, really good effort, and deserved 1-0 win.
Now, our next game had more goals in it than any other game in the Premier Division on Saturday. Roman Glass taking on Chipping Sodbury. Chipping Sodbury, bottom of the table in the Premier Division, not having a very good season at all. But Roman Glass, well, they've been on fire in recent matches, and that continued on Saturday, Tom.
Absolutely. They might be the team to watch at the moment, Roman Glass. Absolutely banging in the goals, and a 6-1 win over Chipping Sodbury, helping them continue to rise up the table. I think they're up to 15th now. And it was, a pretty amazing start for them. Sam Wentland heading them ahead inside 90 seconds, with Ryan Radford and then George Box each scoring to make it 3-0 inside 10 minutes. So, pretty much putting the game beyond doubt almost. Troy Simpson then adding 2 more goals during the first half to give them a 5-goal lead at the break. And then it was Box again, added a late 6th. That's now 17 goals they've scored in their last 3 games over the space of 7 days. So a big win for Roman Glass. Chipping Sudbury are bottom, but that was Roman Glass not too long ago. So they can maybe if they did produce the performances that Roman Glass, who were previously bottom of the table, if they can replicate those, Chipping Sudbury, then they'll soon be out of trouble as well. But absolutely amazing turnaround from Roman Glass.
Well, Tom is absolutely right, of course, in his analysis. Roman Glass have scored 17 goals in the last 3 matches. So when I caught up with Andy Gurney for this week's podcast interview, I started off by asking him, what's his goal-scoring secret?
I don't really know. I think we've obviously got good front players now. We've managed to improve that area massively over the last month or two. And at the minute, things are going for us in that top end of the pitch. But certainly, we have lots of quality in that area now that it will always score goals if we create the chances.
Now, the start of October looks like quite a pivotal time for you this season. You suffered a defeat at home to Westbury, but followed 3 days later by a win against Shepton Mallet.
Yeah, it was an important win for us because we'd had a poor start. Losing our first few league games, and we've done quite well in the cup competition. So we've had league games cancelled and fell behind teams really. So that was a big game for us to get 3 points in that game, to get points on the board, and we've managed to follow it up with a couple of wins since. So that was a big result. Because the longer it goes trying to get that win, sometimes it can become a habit of not getting it. So that was a big win for us on that day.
Goals-wise, the win against Chipping Sudbury was also pretty emphatic. I mean, looking back on the match, do you think that the performance sort of was a 6-1 performance?
I think certainly in the first half, we come out the blocks really well and got 3 quite early goals. And we're by far the better side in the first half and deserved the lead. I think it was 5-0 at half time, which we really deserved. And then second half, to be honest, we didn't play very well. But I think sometimes that can happen when you've got that cushion at half time, even though you don't want it to happen. You can come out and not be quite at it the same sometimes. And that said, we could have easily got 2 or 3 more in that second half. And again, it was a good performance, certainly in the first half more so.
Now, you mentioned that the last month or so you've been pleased with the players that you've been able to bring in, and also that you've talked about the relatively slow start to the league campaign. Is that a reflection of your pre-season? Were you slightly frustrated that you weren't able to bring in the players that you wanted before this season started?
Yeah, pre-season is always difficult, and I think certainly in our league, everyone's trying to go and get the same players, aren't they, really, and with lots of teams at our level in the Bristol area. So it was a little bit frustrating, but that said, we were still happy with what we had, and even in those first few league games, we could quite easily have won those. Even though the performances weren't particularly fantastic, we still had big chances in those games, and I think we lost them all by 1 goal. So they were tight games. It wasn't like we were getting hammered earlier on or anything like that, So we could quite easily have had more points on the board, if in truth. But we haven't. We got what we got, and we got to try and keep building now, game by game, and trying to close the gap that teams above us have sort of created with our poor start. But it was a little bit frustrating, but it is what it is really, and we're on a decent run at the minute. I think we've won 7 out of our last 9 or something like that, I think. So got another difficult game Saturday at Cadbury Heath, but one in which we'll be looking to go and get 3 points from.
Has the start that you've had, has that tempered at all your expectations for this season?
I think now we just got to keep trying to chip away and to take it a game at a time, like I say. And if we can get another 3 points on Saturday, that stands us in good stead. And I think the week after we go into the FA Vase again. So, and that's something that we want to try and continue to run in that we've had. But with the league, I think we just got to keep chipping away and see where it takes us. And maybe the gap that is there now, with the top 4, with the start we have, maybe it might be a bit too big, but certainly we'd be looking to try and get closer to those teams, and who knows if you can stay sort of winning games and keep chipping away. Come January, you never know, you might be a little bit closer to those teams. So we've not given up hope on trying to aim for that top 4 or 5, but like you say, with the start we've had, maybe it might be a tall order, but it's certainly something we'll be trying to do.
You certainly don't sound like a manager that would be concerned in any way by taking on those top 4 or 5 in the league. I get the impression, particularly considering how many goals you have been scoring recently, that actually you'd quite welcome the prospect of taking on anyone at the moment.
I think so. I think, like I say, certainly with our attacking wise, we'd be a match for anybody, I think. And there's no easy games, is there? Certainly, when we come up against those top teams, to be the test for us, really. We've already played Bridgewater, and we were very unlucky that day to come away losing 2-0. I think the goalkeeper got man of the match that day, and that was one particular day where we didn't take the chances that come our way. So, no, I don't think there's anything to be afraid of. There's good teams, obviously, in the league, and those teams are all up there now. But like I say, we just got to keep chipping away and worry about our results, not worry about. I don't even look at league tables, to be honest with you, and I don't think I will till January time, really. And if we can try and close that gap, great. But certainly we don't fear anybody, and that's not in a blasé or arrogant way of any kind. We know we got good players. So, and if we don't close that gap, to be honest with you, then it wouldn't be good enough, because with the players we have now, with the squad we have now, we should be looking to close that gap and get closer to them.
Now, it's going to be a big 7 days coming up for you, isn't it? Starting with Cadbury Heath, then you've got Bridport, and then you've got that trip to Petersfield in the FA Vase.
Yes, it's lots of games coming up. I think, November, going into November, there's lots of games as well. But I say we just take it one at a time, really. And the big one for us now is Saturday, and that's trying to get 3 points at Cadbury Heath, which is, again, like I say, won't be easy. It'll be difficult. And if we can get 3 points in that, obviously then we'll look at next Wednesday in the Les Phillips and try and progress in that. And like you say, then we go into that Vase game, which, we want to try and go as far as we can in that. We just want to try and win every game, really, the same as everybody else, I guess. But certainly, like I say, the run we're on at the minute, we don't really particularly fear anybody. We think we're a match for anybody. And yeah, we just got to take it one game at a time and see where it takes us, really.
I mean, in an ideal world, would you have preferred a week to prepare for Petersfield, or are you not bothered that you've got the Bridport game in midweek?
No, not really. I think players certainly prefer to be playing games, don't they, in training sometimes. And we've got a fairly sizable squad that can cope with that. If we need to change things around a little bit in any of the games. But no, it's always I enjoy the games, and certainly when you're on a decent run, you want them games to come as quick as they can, really.
Andy, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us this week. Congratulations on your incredible goal-scoring feats in recent matches. It will be fascinating to see whether you can keep it up. But more importantly, we'll certainly be keeping everything crossed for you in that crucial FA Vase game with Petersfield. So all the best for the rest of the season.
Another job, another saving. Brought to you by Toolstation.
Is this all the receipts?
Yes, boss.
For everything we got from Toolstation?
Yeah, why?
I just thought we'd spend a lot more than this.
Oh, no. We got all the best brands too. Makita, Santex, Karcher, Nest.
Top job, top saving.
With over 15,000 trade-quality products at prices that are hard to beat, we're here to save you on every job. At Toolstation.com and all 340 branches.
Moving into the First Division, and we start off with one of my favourite fixtures. It is the Battle of the Bishops.
Absolutely, and I purposefully gave the Battle of the Bishops a big mention in the bulletin this week. Hoping you spotted it, and it was pretty exciting game. 5 goals, and it was Bishops Lydiard who eventually came out as victors away from home 3-2. 2 goals early on for them from Brian Brereton, and then Sam Mockbridge putting them 2 goals ahead inside 15 minutes before Bishop Sutton hit back twice at the end of the first half, taking the game level at the break. But it was Bishop Lydiard who managed to find a second steam, and it was Ben Hebditch volleying home pretty late on to complete the victory and hand Lydiard all 3 points in the first Battle of the not the Battle of the Lydiards, the Battle of the Bishops, of course, this season. So good 3-2 win for Bishops Lydiard.
Our next game features Cheddar. I feel as if the weight of responsibility is upon me, because of course we had Cheddar on. I think that they were second. I don't think that they were top when we spoke to their manager, Sean Potter. And they've gone on a bit of a bad run of form ever since then. Of course, there was the game that I covered, their game against Radstock, and unfortunately their poor run of form continued, this time at home to Longwell Green Sports.
Did. They came close to nicking something from this one, but Longwell Green, unlike Cheddar, are a team who are in form. Aidan Sanfelici putting them ahead, Longwell Green, but then Cheddar managed to get back on level terms, and it was the strike duo who did much of the damage last year, teaming up again. Adam Jones providing the assist for Adam Wright to level things with about 15 minutes to go. So it looked like Cheddar might get a point and maybe push on and gain more, but it was Longwell Green who managed to find that third and final goal, and it was a penalty from Danny Carter, who's I think that's taken his tally to 10 for the season. He's had a terrific start for Longwell Green, and they claim the 2-1 win over Cheddar.
Now, the next match is the game that I pointed out on last week's podcast. It was Sherborne against Radstock. Both sides sort of handily placed in the chasing pack towards the top of the first division, but the winner would go above the other on the grounds that they both had the same number of points. Pretty much my recollection of last week's podcast. Well, anyway, it was certainly a close run thing, but it was the Miners who continued their impressive recent run of form.
Yeah, it was a 3-2 win away at Sherborne. But this was a bit of a topsy-turvy game, this one. Radstock, the visitors obviously twice going ahead during the first half. Jack Biddiscombe and James Rustle. Sherborne managed to hit back on both occasions. Dan Newens and then Anthony Herring scoring equalisers, making it 2-2. A lot of games seemed to go to 2-2 on the weekend, but it was Radstock in this one who claimed that elusive 5th goal, and it came midway through the second half. Youngster Mason Harrison producing the finish after a good bit of build up from much of the team, and 5 wins from 6 in all competitions now for Radstock, so a 3-2 win away at Sherborne for them.
Well, the red half of the Somer Valley was smiling, but were the green half, the Green Army Welton Rovers. They were at home to league leaders Carn Town. A very healthy crowd of 82 saw this at West Clewes, but I think this one we can say went more to plan with the form book.
It did, but they definitely did it the hard way, Carn. Having to come from behind, Dylan Hatt putting Welton ahead in the 14th minute, so they made a good start, the Green Army. But Carn did equalise. Jake Allen, a penalty following a foul on Dan Sibley. That was 20 minutes from time, so Welton had nearly hung on for a pretty brilliant win. But Carl managed to get back on level terms. But then the away side were actually reduced to 10 men. Oscar Webster shown his second yellow card, so potentially giving Welton a bit of impetus during the final few minutes. But unfortunately, a bit of a sucker punch. Carl breaking on the counter-attack, and Stuart Windsor, obviously, banging them in this season. He managed to get his head on the ball and get it into the back of the net, and it was a decisive goal. A 2-1 win for Carl away at Welton Rovers.
Yes, that cements their place at the top of the first division, which we'll be looking at a little bit later on in the podcast. Our final game to review in the first division is Wincanton Town. They were at home to Bristol Telephones, and on this occasion, Tom, we can safely say that Wincanton were very much at the races.
They were. Once the game finally came to life, they were anyway. They had gone behind in this one at home to Bristol Telephones, which would have been a bit of a shock for the system. But yeah, they managed to come back. Toby Cole, he's had a good couple of seasons for them. He managed to get them back on level terms before Dan Wise then fired home a free kick 2 minutes later to put them ahead at the break. So turned it around well, and then during the second half they managed to push on. Lewis Irwin extending their lead before Wise hit another sweet set piece to make it 4-1, and that was how it stayed. So another win for Wincanton, and they're up in second spot.
And that's a great opportunity for me to get hold of their manager. Again, we've had him on the podcast over the last couple of years, Chris Wise. And, I started by asking Chris whether a 4-1 win at home to Telephones was the perfect way to bounce back after last week's disappointing defeat to Longwell Green.
Yeah, it was really important. We did bounce back. We've lost twice in the league this year. They've both been quite heavy defeats. But thankfully we have bounced back with a win in the game after. So it was really important we did that.
Were you pleased with the performance as well as the scoreline?
Second half, first half we weren't overly pleased. A little bit lacklustre. And we actually went 1-0 down, and we were certainly disappointed with the goal we conceded. But it's always good when your team shows character to bounce back and come back from being down. We went in at half-time 2-1 up, and then controlled the second half completely. And it could and probably should have been more second half. So, I was certainly pleased with the second half showing. But the first half left a little bit to be desired. But overall, the whole game, you've got to be happy with a win like that, absolutely.
There is a certain degree of inconsistency about your recent performances. Obviously, we've talked about the defeat to Longwell Green and then the victory at the weekend, but you recently beat Wells, who of course have been going incredibly well. Then you lose to Lebec. So what is it about this league, do you think, that makes it so difficult for teams to string a series of results together?
It is genuinely a tough league. I've heard kind of managers compare it to the championship, and that any team can beat any other team. You've got to be at your best every single game. I know it's a cliche, but literally anybody can beat anybody on their day, and you have to be at your best to get a result. Not always the best footballing team wins on the day. Sometimes you can grind out results that you probably don't deserve from a football perspective. But I guess that's what makes the league so good and so exciting. It's hard to predict on a week by week basis the results. There are always the odd team that you can normally put your hat on a little bit, but even that recently, like to kind of Cheddar losing to Hengrove, for example, it just shows anybody can beat anybody.
Now, in fairness, it's not all doom and gloom, we should say. I mean, you're second in the league at the moment, so you've obviously had a good start to the season. But before the season, were you targeting a sort of a top four place?
No, I mean, we've got our own kind of internal targets. We're certainly not getting carried away with our start at all. It's so early days. It's only, I think we've played 25% of the season, so only a quarter of the way through. I was only saying to somebody at the weekend, if you look at this stage last season, the top two teams were Welton and Chard. I think one finished 7th, the other finished 9th. So there's a long way to go. A lot of football still to be played, and kind of at this stage, it doesn't really show anything yet. We're still kind of getting over the period of the summer where you've got unavailability, etc. We've suffered. I know we've suffered from injuries and a suspension as well, and I know other teams are exactly the same. I could probably count on one hand so far this season where I've been able to put out the exact team I want to put out. So, and I know we're not the only team as well, so I know most teams have suffered from that as well so far. So I don't think the results have quite kind of settled down yet, and you'd probably see over the next coming weeks really get a bit more of an idea of where the league table's going to look.
Now, of course, you and I have spoken a few times over the last few seasons, so obviously you've been in post a while and you've had a chance to shape your squad. In terms of the pre-season you had this season, how much have you added to last season's side?
We said last season that we didn't want huge additions in the summer. The year before, it was a completely new squad practically that went into the season. This year, it was just about adding in key areas. We brought in a new goalkeeper, Sam Stroud. He's been great for us. a new centre back, Harry Turner, in from Sherborne, and he's been terrific. And Louis Irwin as a midfielder. His brother Jamie was already at the club. Louis was at university for a couple of years, so we brought him in the summer as well. And they were kind of the main players we brought in over the summer. We've added to it with a couple more local lads since the season has started. In Dan Ness from Mere, and Jamie Thompson, who was just playing local football in the Yeovil League, and that's it in terms of additions. That, like I said, the really important thing for us and what we were really keen on was to ensure that we kept all our players, which we did, and we're really happy about.
Now you've got Warminster away at the weekend, and although that's not going to be perhaps as tough as I thought it might have been at the start of this season, that's still going to give you a test, isn't it?
Yeah, I disagree with that. Actually, I think it's going to be very, very tough. It always is. They gave us a real thumping down there last year. Off memory, I think it was 5-1. And it's always a tough game. They've got some really, really good players, some really physical and aggressive players as well who can grind out results. And yeah, so it's always a difficult place to go. So we're under no illusions whatsoever that is definitely going to be a tricky game, and one that we're going to have to be at our very best to get a result.
Well, Warminster's a difficult place, but it's also a very hospitable place. So are you hopeful that you'll get a few members of your travelling support coming with you to cheer you on at the weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely will. We've got kind of a core. It's a small group, but it's a core group that come with us away. Warminster, to be fair, always have some of the best crowds in the league. I mean, we'd love to get those kind of numbers, and they're the kind of the examples really of that in our division. Certainly, relatively local around us, the example to follow in terms of attendances. So, if we could get anywhere near that, what they get on home games, would be delighted, and we know that our support going there will certainly get a warm welcome, and it's always a decent place to go.
And my thanks to Chris for his time. Now we will move on to the up and coming fixtures. We're not going to dwell too much on what's going on midweek. I mean, there are plenty of matches going on, particularly in the Premier Division, has to be said, not quite so much in the First Division. I think a notable mention to Wells City against Cheddar on Tuesday. Obviously, those two sides quite geographically very close to each other, so I'm sure there'll be a good crowd at that, as there will, I'm sure, again with Buckland against Parkway. Not quite so many derby matches on Wednesday the 23rd, but there are 4 games in both divisions. So we'll really, for our pick of the pops, we'll start on Saturday the 26th of October. Tom, what game have you gone for?
I've gone for Cadbury Heath against Roman Glass. So I don't want to make this a too Roman Glass centric podcast this week, but they were the team that obviously have stuck out over the last 7 or 8 days or whatever. So can they be stopped? Cadbury Heath obviously not doing exceedingly well at the moment, like their opponents, but 17 goals in the space of 7 days. They're certainly doing something right. So what can Cadbury Heath try and do to combat that on Saturday afternoon? It'd be interesting to find out.
Well, if we know anything about the form guide in the Western League in both divisions, it would be fair to say it's that we are used to now seeing shocks every week, and there's a few games that if you were building your ACCA, which of course please bet responsibly, listeners, then the likes of Parkway, Tavistock at home, even though they've got difficult opposition, you'd think that they were going to be strong favourites. Bridgewater Town are one of those sides that I think would be strong favourites, but they come up against a Buckland side that I think may well be showing signs of rejuvenation. So have Bridgewater got Buckland at the wrong time, and are Buckland capable of springing a shock? That's the question that we hope to be answering this time next week on the podcast. Moving down to the First Division then, Tom, what tickles your fancy down there?
I've gone for Lebec versus Caution. Both in pretty decent form. I think something like 3 wins from their last 5, both of them in sort of league games, both hovering around the middle of the table, which is obviously very congested at this moment in time. But I think that'll be an interesting game to see how both of those teams get on Saturday afternoon.
and I'm going to go for Cheddar against Welton Rovers. Cheddar impressed me when I saw them playing at Radstock. They're a football club that clearly like to play their football the right way, and I know that's exactly the way that Gerard Greenhall wants to play football at his Welton side. Of course, Gerard is a man who has got a foot in, well, I wouldn't go as far as to say both camps, but of course he was previously at Cheddar. So I'm sure this will be a really closely fought affair from two sides that aren't geographically very far apart, but also that like to play football the right way. So I think that that's definitely a highly entertaining game to take in if you are thinking about where to go this weekend. Now, one final piece of business we must conclude on this week's podcast is a quick look at the league tables. I'm not too sure whether we can read too much into what we're seeing at this stage because it is so early on. But it certainly is fascinating to see perhaps those teams that are moving. It's got the feel of perhaps not the first day of a major golf tournament, but maybe the second day. Which teams are looking to make the cut as we head towards Christmas, Tom?
Well, let's find out. So, we've got Plymouth Parkway leading the way at the top. They've played 10. They've got 25 points with a very healthy goal difference of 35, which keeps them ahead of Bradford, who have an identical record of played 10, won 8, drawn 1, lost 1, and they're also obviously on 25 points with a goal difference of 16. So that's the only thing keeping Parkway ahead of Bradford at the moment. But those two locked at the top on 25 points. You've then got Bridgewater, who've also played 10, and they're on 20 points, so 5 points back from the top two. And then you've got a couple of sides with games in hand. So you've got Exmouth in 4th. They've played 8. They've only lost twice, and they've got 18 points. So, a couple of wins would get them up there, joined with the top two. And then you've got Bitton as well, who've played 9, obviously on the back of a pretty brilliant result on the weekend. They're also on 18 points, and then Brislington, who've played a couple more than everyone else. They've played 13 league matches. They're also on 18, but that's the top 6 at the moment.
And the strongest side in the Premier Division, holding the rest of them up, it's Chipping Sodbury Town. Of course, Chipping Sodbury, very difficult start to this season, and it clearly is affecting their form. We can see at the moment. Bridport, they've changed their manager. They're in 20th position. They'll be hoping that their results can turn themselves around, and then odd down. They're in 19th. They've got 10 points, along with Wellington and Bridport. So all of those on 10 points. Just above them, Tavistock and Keynsham. Now Tavistock's got to be a false position because obviously they've done very well earlier this season, so we're expecting their results to pick up. But it just goes, it's a salutary lesson, the position of Tavistock. They've only played 7 matches, got 11 points. But of course, there's no guarantee. You've got to win your games in hand. So actually, if Tavistock don't do that, then all the plaudits in the world won't be doing them any good. So there we go. Anyway, who's making the running in the first division, Tom?
In the first division, we have Calne at the top, as we mentioned. So vital late winner for them on the weekend. They've played 11 and they've won 7 of those. So they're on 23 points, top of the table. Quite a lot of symmetry with the games played at the top of the first, which is good. So obviously it gives you a good comparison, and it is extremely tight. You've got Wincanton in second spot. So all of these sides I'm going to mention now have played 10 matches. They've all won 6 games as well. So very, very tight. Wincanton currently on 20 points, so they're in second spot. You've then got Wells, Longwell Green and Ashton and Backwell all on 19 points. So we'll have plenty to play. Well, another win for them. And they'd be right up there for any of those sides. And then you've got Radstock, who've also played 10. They're on 18 points. So that's the top 6. And there's a number of sides just below that. I mean, even looking into the bottom half, there's a team on 15 points who are, which is Sherborne. They've got a game in hand on all those mentioned. A win for them would put them, joint 6th. So there's still too much to play for. It's too tight to call, but lots of teams doing pretty well, I would say, at the moment.
It's crazy division to look at or to try and make sense of, and you can see so many. If a side can put a run of results together, how they can really propel themselves from the bottom to the top. At the bottom are Bristol Telephones. They've got 4 points. They've played 10 games. They've only got 1 victory. Then it's Bishop Sutton. And they've got 7 from their 10 games, and then it's Hengrove. Now, of course, Hengrove we can see are starting to turn their season around. They're on 9 points from their 10 games. Warminster just above them. Crazy really, when I think about how well I thought they were going to do this season. But they've lost 6 times, and it just goes to show that there are no easy games. There is no form book in this First Division. Actually, sometimes you've just got to find a way to win. Welton Rovers just above them, one of 2 sides, played 10. And I've got 10, along with my own Devizes Town, of course, as well. So, what can we tell from that, listeners? Well, only time will tell. But Tom, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us. We have, of course, been reviewing your excellent bulletin. Where can the listeners find that? That is on the Toolstation Western League website. There's a tab along the top which takes you to the most recent publication. And you can download it as PDF and Word format. It's also on the homepage. And that's up every Sunday afternoon or Sunday lunchtime also, which rounds up everything that's happened over the week. Excellent stuff. Tom, thank you very much indeed for your time. And I look forward to catching up with you on next week's Toolstation Western League podcast.